Wow. So, thank you to everyone who have joined in. Let's get you in gallery view there, Wayne. How are you doing? What are you thinking after all that?
It's the parallels are uncanny. Everything that they've said from the stage there this afternoon was 100% correct. And I think I I have a slightly different perspective, and I would take it a step further, where the thing that people need to consider that for themselves, if they want to only look at what impacts them, well, what kind of doctor do they want to go to if they allow the silencing of doctors that practice evidence-based medicine? If those doctors are eliminated, then all that will be left will be political doctors like Dr. Henshaw, for example, or Dr. Haydu or Dr. Tam. Those are the kind of doctors that will be left determining our treatment. And that should be terrifying to every individual. So I would take that a step further and see that I would describe this as a separation between, and the doctors would describe it as a separation between political doctoring or political medicine and evidence-based medicine. I would suggest that it's even further than that. It's more ethical-based evidence medicine. That is what is being eliminated. The political based medicine is still providing some measure of statistics and data, albeit all primarily false, narrative driven, but there's no ethics involved, right? And the other side of the discussion, the evidence based medicine advocates are still functioning from a place of ethics, the do no harm. And that is the cornerstone of all medicine and health practicing, no matter what the discipline, no matter what the expertise, is that do no harm. Now that's going to lead me into segue into the other side of the conversation, something that we were talking about in the chat about malfeasance. Malfeasance in layman's terms is knowingly doing wrong. And I can speak to my own experience in 15 years as being a working in fire and rescue and being a breathing air expert. That was my job. I was maintaining the breathing air quality of people working in hazardous environments. If I had ever once sent one of my charges into one of the people I was responsible for into an environment with an inadequate mask restricting their level of oxygen and proper chemical composition of breathing air, I would have been charged with criminal malfeasance, knowingly doing wrong. And this, at every level, is what we are seeing. The people that are choosing the side of political medicine over ethical medicine are all committing intentional wrong or knowingly committing crimes. That is what malfeasance is. And this is one of the avenues that, with ethics over fear, we've been looking outside of the box rather than going to constitutional challenges with $1 million cases. What can we do to find a path to remedy, to justice, or at least to answers for the commoner? And this is what we've been working on, is putting together a system, shall we say, or a path through towards medical malfeasance, which most people in Canada don't know that carries a criminal penalty as well of up to 15 years for criminal malfeasance. So this is an avenue that has been completely unexplored so far in Canada, and that when we understand the definition of what malfeasance is and start to look around and say how many people have chosen the side of politicized responses to this alleged pandemic, because the evidence is coming out that this pandemic is entirely manufactured, not natural, complete conspiracy. And to end my ramble on that, being a conspiracy, being conspiracy theorists, if you're labeled a conspiracy theorist, seek a job in media. You are a journalist. If you're a conspiracy theorist, you have all of the qualifications to be a journalist, and you should have no problem replacing all of the mainstream media employees, because they are absolutely propagandists and not journalists, because nobody is ever calling them conspiracy theorists. They are a part of the conspiracies. So go seek a job in journalism.
I love that propaganda and how it actually ties into the other three categories that I've talked about, which is the reporter, the futurist, and also the historian. And it's just like we really have to choose where we're going to be framing our reflection in future now. We have to really change that self-image so that we can actually decide whether we want to be a propagandist and go with the mainstream narrative that is not true and we feel it, and actually learn how to reconnect with our intuition so that we can make that connection, so that we don't blindly trust people that have sold out.
The instant we can find a place where there is no fear, we can start to function at a level that is not trauma driven. And most people are making decisions based on fear of the moment, not the consequences. And they are under a constant state of siege from every direction. And so this is what keeps people, the vast majority, in a state of fear. And like I say, making these decisions that are not based in future interests, they're based in surviving the moment, because that's where what they're being made to feel is they need to survive the moment. Their life is in danger at every moment, every turn. And that is the number one thing that we have to find a way to get around, is start making decisions based on humanity in our future, again, not on surviving the moment based on a false narrative being perpetrated by literally terrorists. We are under siege from terrorist organizations by every definition of the word. Terrorism, we are enduring that from our government based on what? As they said, based on what?
Yeah, it's the Trojan horse effect. It's like you get a nice gift and it looks all good, and then you get the horse in, and then when nobody's looking, all of the soldiers from inside of the horse's belly escape and then overtake the kingdom. And essentially, if you actually look at it from a spiritual perspective, our body is that kingdom. Our cells are the real estate that is being fought for right now. And there is literally a Trojan horse mechanism that Dr. Sherry Tenpenny has talked about that is inside of the gene therapy injections that make it seem like it's not going to change the message that the RNA tells the DNA as to what it is to be. And yet that's not the truth, because even in a caterpillar, when it no longer is a caterpillar, it's because the RNA got a different message to the DNA to tell it how to be or what to be. And thus the blueprint that the DNA followed changed. And people say, but no, that is not the way it's going to be. But then there's this Trojan horse mechanism that makes it seem like it's not going to bypass the barrier that makes that message change, is what I've been told by a scientific one who says everything must be peer reviewed and fact checked, of course. But who's doing the fact checking, and who's fact checking the fact checkers? And who is actually aware of the fact that peer reviewed simply means that you come from the same college or the same realm? It's just like with the bar. And in the question, in the comments about needing to have the same legal or lawful piece to what's going on here that we just had an opportunity to see, right?
Well, one of the things that we have to kind of put into perspective, um, with some of these things, just like when we get a group of these experts in the medical field from different disciplines, different fields of expertise, they can be using the same words, but it's almost a completely different meaning and understanding in a different expertise. You turn the words around a little bit and it means something completely different. And this is what the discussion quite often comes to when you're dealing with different practice of medicine. And it's the same. There is jurisdictions, there is expertise, and what you say in one jurisdiction is absolutely correct. You say the same thing in a different jurisdiction, and it is completely negated, completely the wrong thing to do. So this is where we have, as Canadians, have had the disservice of having this understanding of our own nation and our own history stolen from us, and it's really left us handcuffed as to understanding what is due process in one jurisdiction, what is due process in another jurisdiction. These things have been completely stolen from us. So, and it's forbidden discussion. So we find ourselves grasping at straws sometimes, and then we end up getting caught in the process. Once we're caught in the whirlwind, it's like, how do you pull yourself out of the toilet bowl when you're already in the middle of the swirly, right? It's pretty tough. So these are the things that people are struggling with. The minority of people are struggling with in trying to stand up and do, seek some remedy or some effectiveness. But the bottom line of it is there's no playbook for getting out of this, because we've never had to get out of this before. And unfortunately, what we're up against is a playbook that they have repeated over and over and over again throughout history. They've done this same thing since the beginning of time immemorial. The two and have our histories from us as they cycle through. So there's so many different things that are affecting people's ability to keep a tether on reality. And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to us as people and humanity, remembering humanity and understanding that we are literally in the fights to save humanity. Because once we become genetically modified organisms, we are no longer God's creatures anymore. It's just you can't have your cake and eat it too. And these people have absolutely no idea or concept what they are doing as far as for the future, what it's going to do to us as a species. They have goals, they have, extreme various and evil objectives, and they're at a point where there is no cost that is too high for them to pay to achieve their goals. That's how they are seeing it here right now. So hence this international experiment on a global scale. And this is, at the end of the day, it still boils down to the same evils that have been around since the beginning of time: power and control. That's really what it all boils down to. And the interesting part of it is, though, is it's in our human nature to not learn the lesson until the price we pay is high enough. When something is hot, we keep touching it to see how hot it is, to see how hot it is. Is it getting hotter? Is it getting hotter? When it burns, we stop.
Yeah.
When it burns, we stop. We've learned. And humanity has been experiencing the best time since we were evolved. This has been the last 40, 50 years has been the most comfortable time in human history. And we got soft. We got sucked into this satanic lullaby. And unfortunately, it was going to take such an extreme to wake people up from this satanic, well, it's an intervention, right? It's got to get bad enough before people learn, and it becomes an intervention and they stop doing it. And that cycle is just a little bit different than the last time they pulled it.
I've never heard it called a
and with a lot more at stake.
Intervention before. That's,
pardon me?
I said I've never heard it called a satanic intervention before, but it's so true as to what's going on here and what's really driving it, and the fact people are so unaware of the fact that this is a spiritual war right now, and humanity is the territory, the real estate being fought for, and our cells are being attacked with fear at the expense of our faith. And we have to understand that faith is not just in a religious sense, which is why we've been so polarized and taught not to talk about religion or politics, because both of them are where our power exists. So leave it to the professionals, leave it to the medical professionals. Then they even had to patent and, create a whole industry around the medical system to make sure that all of it was regulated and peer reviewed and censored by the establishment that was the most profiteering one that could help the other boys in the boys club be able to benefit, because essentially much of this has also been connected to the Freemasons and stuff that wasn't talked about today and we don't necessarily want to get into, and the Illuminati and all of these secret societies, that it's just like the rabbit hole runs so deep it's laughable.
It's one of the, where we're at right now, the way I kind of see it is it's kind of like when you start to walk down a hill and then you have no choice. You kind of got to pick up speed a little bit. Yeah. And next thing you know, you're running down the hill, and then you're like thinking, okay, now I have really got to keep running because then I'm going to crash if I don't. So you become, and this is where we're at as a society. We've been forced. We've had this created addiction to fear, and it's no different than a drug addiction. Words and emotions create chemical reactions within us. And that's the foundation of neuro-linguistics programming. NLP is to put words together that create a visceral, an actual physical reaction. And this is what has happened. So no longer are we sampling the crack. The society is addicted to the crack. They cannot function without fear because their whole world is consumed in fear. So when they step outside their door, they're surrounded by fear and they are comfortable in that fear. This is the addiction, and hence why I call it an intervention. And we'll never get past the fear without truth. The fear comes from the darkness, and there is the only way to shed light on that darkness is the truth, good, bad, or ugly.
Yeah, absolutely. Marie Jose Godin says they are pushing for a fall of civilizations as we thought we knew, and no, humanity is pushing to the fall of the evil empire. Absolutely. This is literally an empire.
If you look at everything they're doing, the one thing that they have never been able to overcome is the free will of men. And what by that I say mankind, the free will of men, and their ability and desire to give all for their faith, right? So what they have been very, very busy doing for the last 50 years, 100 years actually, is trying to deconstruct that faith. They are trying to prove God is a fiction. They are trying to prove that religion is fake, that our faith in the supernatural is a joke. So it's been this never-ending onslaught to promote evolution, Darwin's theory of evolution. That proves God wrong, right? And they make an attempt to take over the world, and they fail because they can never adequately expect or plan for how far we are for our freedom and our faith. So they have never been able to win because of that immeasurable force. So this is the push now to make the state God, right? The state is the solution to everything. The state has the answer. Faith has no answer. See that this is a lie. Marriage is a joke. The sex is a joke. The state is the new worship point. So that's what they're ultimately trying to do. And unfortunately, this, like I said, is just history repeating itself. And the trigger point on this was literally the night of Brexit. And this was predictable. The writing was on the wall. The night of Brexit, I'm telling people exactly what happened over the next year, and everything that has happened has been exactly what was predicted. This isn't rocket science. I'm not Nostradamus. These plans are all available to the public. Their strategies, their plans, everything that they're doing is out and it's available. Sorry, my phone is to die on me here.
Yeah. No,
so this kind of stuff is it's unfortunate. It's again, this comes back to people understanding and having that disconnect, and that's an intervention, disconnecting them from whatever it is. But this Jim Jones cult is really how they're manipulating and using fear and intimidation and terrorism. And the sad part of it is there's basically two kinds of people out there. There's givers and there's takers. And the takers, the narcissist type of people have this, find this incredibly empowering. All of a sudden they have a sense of authority. They can come at you if you're doing anything that doesn't comply to the hive narrative or the group think. They are all of a sudden super warriors for the enforcement wing of this ideology. So they become drunk on this power, this social enforcement. It strokes their ego, and then of course all the virtue signaling that goes a part of with that, being a part of that hive thinking group collective thing. They continuously pump themselves up with fake air, right? So it turns into these robots. So they have no evidence as a part of the board collective, and that's kind of what the difference between the two. We're becoming separated in humanity. You're either part of the Borg or you are still human.
Yeah. I remember when I worked at the superstore as a cashier, and you always have, during COVID, you had the traffic brigade, I called it, and so you had the person directing traffic as to which lane they could go down, and then you were supposed to get them to wait there before then they could load their groceries after that one had paid, and then they had to get down and pick up their groceries before the next one could start loading. And it was just fascinating to me, and I told people I was part of the retraining brigade. And I introduced myself with a smile because I refused to mask until I was forced into an unpaid leave effective immediately as well. And so it's like I literally commented to people and I pointed things out, but like I had some colleagues that really didn't like me. And, one particularly narcissistic one, she was just downright rude, and we just didn't even hardly acknowledge one another. Like I would acknowledge her for my own sake, to know that I had done my best so that I could leave knowing that, I had done well. But basically it was like, that was literally the only reason that I did it, which it wasn't even necessarily the full effect, but she was rude, and she loved the power. And it's like she freaked out one day because I called people over to the fast lane because nobody was there, and it's just like she was so offended that she hadn't told the ones that I had called over to come. And it was just like, lady, they're all trying to get out of here. We're just trying to make their experience as blessed and delightful as possible. So let's just wave them over and you go control somewhere else, please. And that didn't go over well, but
no, they've created an entire industry of COVID cops that are very good at self-inflating and self-importing themselves and designating themselves superior to all of our rights, freedoms given by God. And that's kind of the bottom line of it for me. And I do not comply.
Yeah, I agree. And
but my phone is going to die.
I was just going to say, yes. So the reason that I wanted you to come on here before we ended this America's Frontline Doctors showing is because you've been doing the equivalent with the Canadian doctors, with Dr. Bridle out of the University of Guelph. You've hosted mastermind meetings and summits where they could present and share some of their information. Similar things are happening for the Canadian doctors as to what's happening to the American doctors. It's just not as publicly known because Canadians have notoriously been so polite that we just haven't seemed to be able to get our message out there. We needed to get more unified, and we've been doing that. And the task force is a big part of that with Ethics Over Fear that you've spearheaded as well.
It's I don't think that the difference is so much that we're so much more polite. I do think that it's more attributable to the level of censorship in Canada is astronomically greater than what it is in the United States. They do experience some censorship, but it is minuscule compared to what we're experiencing here in Canada. And this is what has made it a challenge in growing what we've been doing. And I've been so blessed to be working with exactly that, the Canadian equivalent called the Canadian COVID Care Alliance Group, which is now well over 100 doctors. And I've been working directly with the masterminds of that organization to provide them an avenue to express their concerns, their signs, the truth that is being stolen from Canadians. And so this has all been part of working with this new task force, the Ethics Over Fear task force that I launched starting at when this started to show that this was an absolute necessity for Canadians. They needed people, real people, not these quote unquote experts say. They needed to hear from the real experts. So this is what I set out to do, and this has grown itself into something far bigger, far bolder, to bring together networks of people to take action, to seek redress, to find a path through to at least the truth, and perhaps remedy and justice, and to, because this is not the world that we want to live in. And these doctors are not just evidence-based doctors and scientists, but ethically grounded as well.
Indeed. And you mentioned something incredibly important, which is redress, which, as some people may be aware, Wayne and I have talked about this in detail, and we'll talk more when he's got a longer battery life in his phone. But the Practical Lawful Dissent International group, we mentioned it on last Thursday's call for empowering leaders of self mastermind at 5:55 Eastern Standard Time. It's a weekly occurrence now because it's a sacred space for warriors to come and unfold organically. And Wayne shared many insights last week, so hopefully you'll be able to come on again this week. And I lost my train of thought right there. What were you? I just got a big email from it as well. That was brilliant.
Well, there's a lot of fights we can choose to fight, and I've been very again blessed to be a part of the inner workings and the interconnections of almost I would say about 90% of the Freedom Network in Canada, the people that are speaking up on every level, on every up towards all of the different justices that are being committed. So I've found that it's very easy to get overwhelmed taking on all of the fights. So I've kind of, through creating this task force, that sort of fear task force, it's helped me focus on effectiveness rather than mass battles, right? So we're becoming more selective in the actions that we take, and the thinking there is to create means where other people can duplicate it, that they can seek justice or seek remedy themselves. We're not taking on superhuman tasks. We're not trying to be superheroes. We're looking to be effective. And that is kind of where the focus in my mindset has changed, is how can I be effective now? How can I arm and empower people now? There are much bigger fights that are coming, but right now, what will help with this intervention? And that's kind of the teeth side of the Ethics Over Fear task force, is providing people with something that they can use right here, right now, within the jurisdiction, within the charade, to beat them at their own game with their own tools. That's where we're at right now.
Yeah, well, it ties into what Dr. Simone Gold had shared about the big versus little and the individual
Yep.
versus the tribe. And so, very much strengthening and empowering leaders of self to be able to take a stand, which was what I was saying before that email came in. And then you shared what was necessary too. So, definitely please come out on Thursday, 5:55. We're going to be talking about sacred activism and what that means to actually change the ordering of the letters of scared into sacred, which is returning back to the essence of life and what we came here to experience fully. So would love to be able to share that with everybody that is watching this replay. It's been a long one. We'd love to know what this message means to you, what it means for you, what you're going to do with it, what you are doing with it, if you are involved with any leaders movements, if you're here in Canada where Wayne and I are, or if you are elsewhere in this world. All we really are looking for is the unification of those with a heart to uplift humanity and to be able to let the corruption go, because we are willing to do as individuals what it takes in order to stand for and advocate for ourselves so that we can set the precedence. Because if we won't do it for ourselves, how can we dare to do it for anyone else? And so, one thing I wanted to say too, Wayne, is it's not even just about looking for experts anymore. That whole expertise factor is very much connected to the you've got to have the certificate, you've got to have the accolades in order to say that you are enough. What I would say this is really a shift into is mastery. And that's what we all have a chance to do. So we don't need to be experts of ourselves, but if we can be masters of ourselves, if we can really actually see what comes up and then master that, and then actually take action to use the tools that are available by Ethics Over Fear and many of the other associations that are doing good things in this world and that are creating tools that you can use if you are willing to use the sacred word of your own sword to be able to cut yourself free from the BS that kept you bound to what wasn't yours before, and now you can separate from and step into what is.
Well, a couple of quick little analogies that I kind of live by. I've spent most of my life being a student of military history and religious history. So I got 40 some odd years in all this. And a couple of the meaningful, profound things to me is I would rather be a warrior walking in a garden than a gardener walking in a war. Right. And that's how very much how I see myself in this world here right now. And I am military trained. I do have the ability to do great harm, but my words are my weapons, and God forbid that they should ever force me to pick up real ones. This is not where society needs to go. That is not where we're at. So that's kind of how I look at what we're at, how I function and govern myself and prioritize myself. My sense of discernment comes from a sense of structure and understanding the ebbs and tides of battles and war and this information war that we're in right now. And I have learned from both sides, the victors and the losers throughout history. And I see where we're at here right now. And I understand that, okay, I don't have billions of dollars, so I can't have that giant, big, fancy cannon. But I do have a lot of sticks and stones, and I can make an awful lot of bows and arrows, which I've done. Now we've got the weapons, the armament, the truth. Now all we need is the group of people that are willing to put away the false evidence appearing real and face everything and rise and pick up some of these bows and arrows and join the fight. Because only once in a very, very blue moon in the history of our species does one generation hold the power and the future of our species, of our society, of our world in our hands. And this is us right here, right now.
We're the players on the field. We're the ones that we've been waiting for. No one's coming to save us. We're it.
Yep.
We are the ones.
There is no superheroes. This is not a Marvel comic book world. There is no Superman to swoop in and save us. And the sooner we can accept that and take our little bit of responsibility and take an approach of being ants rather than trying to be Godzilla's and put away our ego. None of us are Godzilla. We are all just ants, and starts to work together in cooperation. That's when we can literally put an end to this overnight. We have 7 some million people being controlled by a few thousand. This has to stop. And if anybody needs or wants more evidence, more bows and arrows and ammunition, by all means, please reach out to me on What's Up Canada or Ethics Over Fear, and we will absolutely fill your quiver and put you into the fight.
I look forward to getting anybody who is interested in Wayne Peters and his message and what he's doing with Ethics Over Fear, which I'm also involved with, and really being able to support society as we kind of step out of this ruse that we've all been living underneath of for however long, and especially in the last year and a half, and step into the world that we're here to create together with the help of the youth that we really need to get involved, which is a topic for another day. And we really do need to wrap wrap up for today, but I wanted to kind of leave with that whole reference to ants, which you had shared, and that ants die when they're isolated. Ants die on their own. They have to be part of a community, and we're not much different from that. We need one another. We're better together. We're not islands, because what we all hold a key that can unlock a door within each of us that would never have been accessed had we not connected, for us to be able to have that interaction and get that question asked for that answer to emerge. Because coaching even is about asking questions that draw answers out of the individual, not about giving answers. So we don't have to be the smartest one in the room. We just have to be the most curious, which is why journalism is so huge. And we actually met through the freedomforumcanada.com forum, where we are looking to connect with others who are curious, who are considering, and who are actually doing things. You were going to say?
I wear a lot of hats, but the significant thing that I wanted to point out was that it doesn't matter who we are, whether you and who we're around, whether it's a stranger or a friend. If you touch them, if you physically touch them by accident, by intent, there is a transference of energy and information, and it is immediate. Immediate. There is a transfer of information, albeit an accident, be it intentional, be it pleasant, be it angry. There is an immediate connection, and it takes no less time than plugging in a light switch. That transfer of information and education and emotion and feeling isn't just a system of sinews and skin and nerves. That is a transformation. That is a transference of information and connection, and that is how our species survives, lives, and thrives. It's absolutely essential.
Absolutely. And so much is essential, including you, everyone, each one of us. We are all essential. So I I'm kind of joking, but just kind of putting it all together and saying something that is said jokingly, but is very serious. We all matter. And we put this on today because we wanted to make sure that you have an opportunity to gain access to information that we believe is valuable and connected to what we're already trying to do. It's just behind the scenes, and with the censorship that is more intensified here, as is the MK Ultra, which we can talk about in the next time that we come together, because that is literally something that sounds real sci-fi and out there, but it's actually significantly enhanced here in Canada. So Wayne was the one that put me onto that one, and I look forward to getting more information about that soon. But I want to be respectful of everyone's time. It's been nearly 2.5 hours of being online, and it's 3:33. So final words, Wayne?
Just pick up a bow and arrow, guys. Defend what you got, because we only have one Canada, one country, one homeland, one species of humanity. That's it. And that's really what it's going to boil down to, because regardless of what we believe individually, if we don't find a way to cooperate, we're all going to end up in the same.
Yeah.
So let's do it.
Yeah. The nation,
that's it,
will remain the land of the free, only so long as it is the home of the brave, was the post that I made earlier today. So thank you for being brave.
At the end of the day, God wins.
God is all things. So yes, indeed.
At the end,
may we
at the end of the day, he always wins.
Yeah, may we choose.
Take the lesson learned and do what's right.
This is it. The stipulation. If God is all things and God always wins anyway, then we have to be the ones that choose whether we are going to be personally judged at the end of this, because personal liability and personal responsibility is something that we've talked about as really needing to go into deeper. And
it's a tough.
His phone died. But literally, personal responsibility and accountability is what we are all being called to step up for and to step into, to know that we will be judged at the end of our lives, and we're also going to be judged while we're here. It's not going to be that far out until the next round of the Nuremberg trials are being held, and we're all going to be called to stand for and answer what we did when our country was under siege, when we were being duped and misled. And yes, God does win, and yet we must choose which wolf we feed within us, as the old karaoke parable of the grandfather with the grandson says, where the grandfather says to his grandson, there is a fight happening within you between two wolves. One is black, it is evil, it is envy, it is sorrow, it is greed, it is jealousy, it is irresponsibility, ignorance, all things unkind. And then the other is white, it is good, it is innocence, it is love, it is joy, it is purity, it is beauty. And not to say that these are associations distinctly made to the black and white binaries, but I'm using it because it was the example of the parable. So the point is, the black and the white wolf are fighting, and when the grandson, horrified to know this is happening within him and his loved ones too, says, "Grandfather, which wolf will win?" And the grandfather says, "The one you feed, my son." So I hope that you gained information that allows you to feed the wolf that is good within you, and to know that God will win either way, and yet you get to answer for which wolf you chose to feed within your own carnal nature or the divine nature that you have an opportunity to ground. So I hope that this message serves you. I would love to know what it means to you, what it means for you, what you're going to do with it, as I always ask. So please do leave a comment below. I do appreciate everyone who shared. So thank you, Emma Godwin's. Yes, I absolutely love it. I appreciate each of you for showing up today. And I will bid you adieu for now and look forward to seeing you hopefully on Thursday at 5:55 for that Empowering Leaders of Self Mastermind group. Details are on meetup.com. Peaceful Inner Warriors United is my group, so definitely do check that one out at 8 p.m. on Thursdays as well. I read The Human Aura by Katumi as part of a book study where we're doing 2 chapters per week, and we'll be reading chapters 5 and 6 this Thursday, and you can listen to the replays. I've got a playlist on my YouTube channel, Laura JeH Hamilton, there too, if you're watching this on Facebook, which you are, and this will be posted to YouTube. So I'm catching up in my own head, and I sometimes just speak it aloud. The earth is waiting for the sons and daughters of God to manifest. Manifestation is already here. It's just about the placement of the energy that we have to decide as to where we're going to intentionally direct our energy. Our energetic resources are our team energy. It's a time, energy, effort, attention, money, time, team. Those are what is standing out right now is the time, which is then the space continuum of that gateway process report by the CIA that I mentioned earlier in the call. I would highly recommend, if you haven't checked it out before, CIA gateway process report. Fascinating, because it talks about the center point being between the black and the white holes, of which we then become God incarnate because we are part of the field of resonance, which is why we feel truth, because it's part of the field of resonance. So lots of information, lots of considerations. I'd love to know what you have to say. So do leave a comment below, and then we'll see you on Thursday, hopefully. And I hope that you got a lot of value from this. Do share this with someone that would enjoy, benefit, or be open to the fact that there is an alternative story. It is not just conspiracy theorists that are reporting on the conspiracy. It is just simply the fact that there's a lot more happening than what we're being told in a propaganda box that came into the homes of those who dare to give it time, energy, effort, attention, and money after World War II, when the Nazi plan then became a covert operation. So lots more to share. We'll go deeper another time. It's been almost 2.5 hours and I'm ready to get more coffee. Thanks a lot, guys. Much love. Ciao for now. Laura J. Namaste. Namago.